Hey guys, I got my Comma.AI 3X and I wanted to do a better review than what I've been able to find online. In this case, this is for my 2024 RAV4 hybrid, and right now I'm using the Frog Pilot in this video, but I ultimately ended up using Sunnypilot, and here is the custom URL for the version I'm using. So newer cars don't need the Comma.AI pedal. So because I have Toyota Safety Sense 2.5, TSS 2.5, I'm able to continue doing this without a pedal. But pretty much what you want to do once you get the custom URL in for any software, you want to pretty much toggle everything, including experimental stuff. The actual installation of the Comma.AI is super easy. You'll have to look up a video of how to do it for your specific car, but anybody should be able to do it. I also didn't wait for 3 days, and as you can see, it's doing just fine. One of the very first things you need to do once you have the Comma.AI is calibrate it. And if you're driving over 15 miles per hour, it should pretty much immediately start calibrating. If it doesn't, you'll have to depower it, maybe even reset it. Let's go a little bit more in depth on what the Comma.AI actually is. So most of the reviews you've seen are going to be on the highway, because that's what the Comma.AI excels at. It excels at staying in a lane and continuing straight for you without you touching the steering wheel, and theoretically the gas pedal or brake as well. You may have had people advertise it to you as if it's the Tesla self-driving thing, and it's not quite there yet. This is basically just a really improved cruise control. Now, if it was a full self-driving device, it would definitely be worth the $3,000 it originally started at, or maybe $1,000 that it's currently at. But as of right now, I don't know that it's really worth $1,000. The program is constantly being updated though, so I'm sure eventually it'll be really worth having. It will not take left or right hand turns for you. You'll be extremely lucky if it stops at a stop sign and doesn't completely roll it, and you'll be lucky if it stops at a stoplight. It cannot take major turns. It will tell you that the steering wheel can't go to a certain degree and that you'll need to continue steering. If you are driving too fast and then it detects a red light, it will tell you to slam on your brakes because it can't stop you fast enough. So you 100% need to be paying attention while you're doing this. The good news is you don't have to put your hand on the steering wheel to let it detect your hand. The Comma.AI has a camera facing you that detects where you're looking. And if you're looking down, it'll eventually alert you, hey, I need you to look up and pay attention. Everybody's car is going to have different cruise control features. So my car has a radar in front of it, and that helps the AI determine how far away somebody is, what speed they're going, and just basically in this situation tells me where to stop for the stoplight. Assuming that you've enabled the experimental features and all the other toggles, then you should have the stop and resume feature, which basically says if the car in front of you goes, then you can go too. And I know if you have this specific car, then you'll know that generally the default cruise control says, hey, the car in front of you is moving. I need you to either push resume or the accelerator. But with these experimental features, it'll just detect that the car is moving and it'll allow you to move too. The problem with it is it doesn't quite accelerate fast enough, and so some people behind you get really frustrated. So that's just something that is going to need to be tweaked over time. So here is a pretty decent turn that it does on its own pretty well. It's just because the degrees that the steering wheel has to move doesn't exceed what's set in the limit. But I believe there's also another variable such as your speed, in which it will not turn for you. As for off-roading, it can kind of off-road. Like, it detects this part of the path really well. But once I get to like a turn, it basically just freaks out. So it can follow a path up to a limit basically. So it does have lane switching capabilities, and what you do is you hit the turn signal and then you nudge it in the direction you want to go, and it will automatically pull you into that lane and keep you centered in that lane. It does not have any guidance at all. It does not know anybody that's around you. It will not protect you from that, so you need to know what's around you. it can see in the fog probably better than you or I can. So let's get into some video of the Sunnypilot, which I ultimately decided was superior to FrogPilot. Although I do really like the themes of FrogPilot, it was great. So here you saw that it stopped for me behind the car and it kept track and it resumed going, but it didn't accelerate very fast. So most of the time I end up having to push the gas pedal, which ultimately I don't want to do. I want it to keep up with people. I don't know if it's intended to creep up on people like this, but it scared the crap out of me. It did stop on its own this time, but in a few seconds, I am just too creeped out by it, and I ended up having to hit the brake. So here we go back to a rolling stop at this light. And it's like, I felt like it was a little slow while it was creeping up, but it just wouldn't stop. So I mentioned previously that it's really good in fog. Well, it's also good in rain, because ironically, I think the camera sees through the rain better than we do. And it does really well in the dark as well. So if you have an eye problem in the dark and there's all that glare and you just don't have enough confidence when people with their bright lights are driving past you, this is a great tool to assist you in night driving. Like I said, this is more of an assistance thing than a full self-drive. One of the things I notice it's weak at is when it goes from a right to a left turn rather quickly. It kind of freaks out, and I think it's partially because it technically makes the steering wheel move at a certain degree more than it wants to. Another thing is like this short turn right there. It's very sharp and sudden, and I don't think that it's very good at that. Another thing is you still need to pay attention, because like the guy in front of me, he's going to just completely blow through a left turn lane. I didn't trust it here, but I don't think that the OpenAI knew what to do there. It surprisingly does really well most of the time reading the lines, but in that instance, it's just too sudden. It can be kind of annoying when people take super slow turns in front of you, because it makes the car kind of freak out. But it's also really good at maintaining going straight, even if there's long batches of no lanes in front of you, no lines at all, like through intersections. It's actually surprisingly decent at a lot of things. But it's just one of those things where it's not quite there yet. You need to pay attention while you're using it. But I feel like 90% of the time, I just have my arms over my head, just chilling, because it does relatively well. I've noticed this a lot, and I don't know why it's doing it. When you take a left turn through an intersection and you even tell it to continue going straight, it'll try to throw you left still, and I don't know what's going on there. And in this instance, we're traveling too fast, basically, and by the time it detects that it's a red light, it's just too sudden. So it can see pretty far, but it just can't make judgment calls quick enough. So you end up having to hit the brake a lot of the time. And that's another thing I wanted to mention. So far, their main focus is lane centering right now. That's what the programming's been about lately. It's trying to master keeping you in a lane. Eventually, they're going to move on to more lateral movements, like your left and right. So this is just quite a process, and these developers aren't getting paid to code this stuff. It's just for their own, amusements and whatever. So it's all open source. It's gonna take time, to get where we need to go. But like I said before, I don't know that it's quite worth $1,000 quite yet. Well, definitely not $3,000. I would have returned this so fast if it was worth $3,000. I would say good price would be $200, $300. But oh well, I'll keep it for the $1,000 that I paid.